Welcome to the Journey Podcast, where we talk freight, sales, tech, the market, and everything in between. My name is Will Jenkins, CEO and founder of Journey. Let's get it. Hello, and welcome to the Journey Podcast. My name is Will Jenkins. I'm joined today by Justin Turner, the absolute sales legend. What's up, big dog?
That's kind of you. Man, I'm doing great today. I wish it was a little bit warmer, but man, all is well.
Welcome to the game, baby. It is very cold. Interesting topic here today, customer and account segmentation. This is important wherever you're selling. This isn't just freight brokerage stuff, understanding who fits in which segments and assigning the right type of seller and the right type of support to work through that. A lot of different ways to do it, but we have some interesting conversations with our customers, specifically on the consulting side. But this trickles over to the recruiting side too, because you start to scope out a role. Someone tells you they need an account executive. Well, an account executive going after sub $100 million customers is very different than someone that's a senior account executive that's going after higher mid-market or maybe lower enterprise. Different persona, the customer is different. So I know you wanted to dive into account segmentation. I'm going to let you run with it, but I'm intrigued to see what you have to say because we attack this a lot.
Man, we spent so much time talking about this. And to me, it's one of the more pivotal aspects of the go-to-market motions. And it's often overlooked because we kind of assume that everybody behaves the same when you don't focus on segmentation. And it's just not true. And I think one of the things I want to pull out to start at the top is the reason why it's so important is because companies behave differently based off size and based off real expectations around their entire value chain. The requirements tend to be totally different, and it's all dependent on what type of company you're talking to, what size of company you're talking to, and also like what type of buyer you're talking to inside the organization. You know, they all have different incentives. They all have different job requirements, right? So understanding all those things, Will, I think is just like essentially the foundation of creating the proper go-to-market strategy.
When we think about segmentation, a lot of different characteristics or qualities that go into segmenting a customer. 10,000 foot flyover, very simple. We don't have to get too crazy granular. But if you're looking at a freight brokerage, segmenting customers they're going to sell to, what are 3 or so characteristics that you look at to say, hey, this is an enterprise customer. This is a customer that should be an SMB style shipper, for example.
Yeah. So for one, you need to have a platform to start that can give you great data because all this has to be data centric. Usually the segments are driven by a few different characteristics, but the one by far that drives it is revenue, right? So you want to be able to have really good data to tell you at the account level, not leads, because remember, leads are people. At the account level, what's the revenue of the company? From there, you really want to set, I think, 3 real barriers. There's an SMB barrier, there's a mid-market barrier, and there's an enterprise barrier. Now, we said that we're not going to get too deep into granularities, but there is a very unique difference in SMB that we talk about a lot, Will, with our clients, that there's a really small segment of SMB too that behaves totally different than a larger SMB. We'll get into that later, but SMB, middle market, enterprise. Okay, why the differences? Well, the difference is that small and mid-sized businesses behave differently than enterprises. They tend to have different technical requirements, honestly, if any technical requirements. What do I mean by technical? Technical are integrations. Do we need to connect our systems and infrastructure to communicate with each other or not? Very, very simple. If so, that company has a different set of expectations. You need to have an IT involvement. You need to have a technical involvement because it's just not me and Will communicating they want to do business together. Our systems need to actually have the architecture to communicate with one another.
So you're saying there's a distinct level of sophistication that just exists at a certain style of customer, without a doubt.
It's because it has to, because the volumes are different, right? And if you want to make it very, very simple, we're talking freight right now, but this is probably rings true across any industries. Lower throughputs require less technicalities than higher throughputs. And what I mean by that, if you're in a business that moves a lot of things every single day, the labor cost of managing a lot of things every day is totally different. So their objectives are to apply automation and technical resources around those high volume activities to reduce COGS, to gain efficiency. So if you want to be a supplier within that network, you need to adapt to the technical requirements of that company that they're optimizing for. So it's good to know the barriers, because if I'm a small startup, and I don't have a strong technical function today, if I bought an off-the-shelf TMS, and I have an IT manager that basically just manages the account relationship between the TMS provider, I actually don't have the capacity to engage with an enterprise client without looping in a third-party provider. And maybe that's okay, but you just do know that there's a third-party constituent involved that is not on my payroll likely, that I need to help me land the deal. Why is that also important? Well, we're also trying to manage and optimize for sales cycles right now. So if I'm a small business and my objective is to grow fast, my objective needs to be to find accounts that have the least barrier of entry so we can move fast and get the business moving and create healthy cash flow.
It's
A
interesting.
larger business may have different objectives there. Go ahead.
It's interesting that you say that, because so we're talking about characteristics to start to identify where someone falls from a segmentation perspective, right? We call out revenue, we call out level of sophistication of the buyer. That completely changes it. And you may have an organization that skews more enterprise because they just need more technicality to be able to execute their business.
Yep.
But the other thing about it is sometimes there's a little bit of fool's gold with really, really beautiful logos that seem fun to go after. And then once you get in there, you realize, okay, well, this is a very different style of business for me to manage. Their pay terms are different. The contracting cycles are different. So not to go off on too much of a tangent, but it's interesting to think, man, at the end of the day, if I'm running a brokerage that isn't VC backed, I don't have infinity capital to just keep running this thing forever, I probably got to optimize for customers I can land in 60 to 90 days, much faster, that pay a little bit quicker. They pay faster. The margin profile is better. The level of loyalty is better. So there are so many niche, like intangible things of segmentation too, that they don't show up on the scoreboard until you start invoicing. You realize that you're at net 90 on a lot of freight. And you're like, that logo looked great, until it didn't.
Yeah, that map doesn't work oftentimes. Yeah, I think you're spot on though. If you're building a business today and you're trying to scale, and optimizing for sales cycles is at the top of our priority list, we just cannot recommend targeting longer sales cycle segments, which are always enterprise and large mid-market. It's not just about the technicalities. It's just about the level of competition too. You are talking to someone that is highly pursued. Competition will be high. They are probably not buying transactionally without you making it into their preferred routing guide. And all of those things just take time. And we talk about this all the time. There's a couple things that we control. One is our effort, and the second is our focus. One thing we don't really have a lot of control over sometimes is how long things can take. So we have to kind of focus on things where we know that we can drive impact quickly when you're running a small business. When we were working at very large organizations, we had the capital, we had the infrastructure to wait 2 years to land a large enterprise account, because it's going to be one of the 30,000 accounts we already work with. In this scenario, if I'm running a small to mid-sized brokerage or small to mid-sized business in general, my objective is to build a really accurate segmentation plan so I understand my ideal customer profile, which we shorthand call ICP. And ideally, I'm optimizing for people that I believe we can engage with quickly and get deals over the table. And I feel like if we do that, we keep our business alive. If we don't do that, it's a challenge to keep the business alive, waiting on these long sales cycles to finalize.
Absolutely. So when we dig into segmentation a little bit more, we have, obviously, you mentioned SMB, mid-market, enterprise. Some organizations will further segment them. They may be based on vertical, commodity. You may get really, really niche with expertise, but generally speaking, you've got a couple revenue thresholds, revenue bands, characteristics, volume that says this customer is this style, as simple as it is. The next element of that is aligning your outbound and inbound sales and go-to-market strategy with that style of customer, both from a team perspective, so who's the person assigned to make that outreach and work through that customer, but then how's the infrastructure set up? If we win that business, can we execute it? So that is oftentimes an unspoken part of the go-to-market strategy. You can have the desire to want to go and find the Home Depots and Pepsis of the world from an enterprise perspective. If If you don't have a seller equipped to handle those high level executive conversations, you won't win that business. Likewise, if you're paying people a ton of money to go get Home Depot and Pepsi, I can't have you land onesie twosies because you're not going to be able to pay us back based from a salary perspective and a P&L perspective. It just doesn't make sense.
You mentioned a few things there that I think we should land on is infrastructure also. It's not just about the salesperson. Do I have the operating infrastructure in place to manage high volume business today? Outside of internal operations, do I have the external network density built where I can move tens or hundreds of loads a day from a single client? Do you even want to do that too, right? The margin profiles will be more compressed than the transact relationships that you have in SMB, but there are trade-offs with it all. Now, one of the things that we always tell our clients, Will, also is like, you have to understand where you're investing and what we're gaining for those investments. Where do we get our return, right? So if we have a slimmer margin profile in enterprise, what am I gaining with that? Oftentimes you're gaining a deeper footprint with your carrier base that you can then repurpose for all the transactional business. They don't know you though without consistent volume that moves in and out of their networks. So it's really trying to figure out what's our corporate strategy, just to land on it. What's our corporate strategy? Is it to grow volume fast? Okay, then maybe I want to target large SMB, maybe lower mid-market. Do we want to build a deeper carrier network? Okay, I need consistency if that's the case. Maybe enterprise is okay. Do I have the technical infrastructure to support enterprise? Do I have the operational infrastructure? Can we meet the service level agreements?
Totally.
They're going to ask you for 90+% acceptance. We're about to go through a very cold weather scenario right now where a significant portion of the country could be in inclement weather. You're going to need to accept that freight that you committed to 6-9 months ago. Can you stomach that? Right? These are all the things that I think are important to understand and why segmentation matters, because if you know those requirements, you can direct your team the right way to know what to focus on and what to stay clear of, which is the point.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think the other part about this is understanding how you position your messaging in the market from a brand perspective and a cohesive brand messaging perspective. Man, we have conversations with organizations who we see are very strong from a service perspective. They have great carrier networks, their team, these are experts at managing freight. And then you may look at their website or you may look at their LinkedIn and socials, and it's not very cohesive, right? It's not very clear who they serve. Well, you know who else is looking at that stuff? Your customers. And so if I come to you and let's just say I'm a higher value shipper, I've got something that's not standard 100K cargo and takes a little bit more hand holding and things of that nature. And I look at your website, it looks just like everyone else's. However, you are equipped to do it, right? Your customers would vouch for you. They'd say, Justin's amazing. They handle all these things well. Their communication is great. They have no issues. If I can't read that message to an extent and know that it speaks to me, forget about it. It doesn't even matter. So there's so many layers of it. Yes, we got to segment them and say, this is the type of customer, and then you got to assign the right type of people. But then your brand needs to align with who you want to go after because your customers are doing research on you before they buy from you.
1,000%. Yeah. And this all rolls back into, I think, ICP and understanding what the messaging and positioning needs to be to speak to that target audience. One of the things we talked about a lot, Will, we talked about revenue-based segmentation. We didn't talk a lot about verticals and commodities, right? Like understanding the categories that you truly excel in is important also. Like we see people all the time. Well, there will be like, we want to work with Best Buy. We would love to work with a Target or a large retailer. Okay, well, you just got to understand, like they have different requirements. Do you have a drop trailer network that you can deploy rather quickly? Do you have those relationships? If you want to work with Best Buy, they ship a lot of electronics, as an example. Do you have a high risk, high value insurance policy in place to manage infrastructure that probably will require $1 million cargo policy when most brokerages probably have 100,000, So being able to know what the requirements are of the customers you want to target, it allows you to back into all the things that you need to do to even support them in the first place.
100%.
Thing that we care about the most. If you don't understand all those requirements, you can't be a great salesperson talking to those companies. Because we talk all the time. People think salespeople are like these super incredible wordsmiths that can like get deals over the line because they can talk about things. Really, It's being able to understand the requirements in that segment and have experience that people believe in that gives you integrity. That when you say that we can do these things, you know tangibly the things that are in place today to help you execute. Like that's what makes great salespeople. And oftentimes, you have these people that just deploy salespeople on the floor and say, "Hey, call these companies." And you get the decision maker on the line, and they ask you some very specific vetting questions, and you don't even know what to say, right? So it's important to have all that stuff in place. So when you do bring on your sales team, they have ammo to have really, really incredible conversations, to have depth, not high level, but you can tell with detail what we do great and what we don't.
My favorite thing during onboarding conversations, both on the consulting and recruiting side of our business, is when people tell us they don't do stuff and they tell us a small finite list of what they do actually execute. Makes me smile ear to ear. And then you peel back some layers and you see how well their team is doing. It's a lot easier for me to go from Justin, the director of transportation at a large food and beverage shipper that moves dairy, and then sell that story to 10 other customers that look very similar to Justin, because I know we have the infrastructure, ops, the carrier network, and now I'm getting really comfortable with understanding how to position what we do. And I can say no to other business. It's okay. It's also healthy to focus because you're going to be able to drive down how long it takes to onboard that business. The first time it's a little more challenging. You haven't done it. Everybody starts at zero. Now you sell that story again and again. You start to see the sales cycle close. It's faster. That's how you scale significantly more efficiently, but also it's how you stay focused. One of the things that scares me the most is when people say we do everything. When you're everything to everybody, you're nothing to anyone. And so it's just not an effective way, and especially in a market as competitive as we're in today, in an industry as competitive as we're in today. Man, grab a couple, right? Do a few modes and a handful of commodities exceptionally well.
Yep. People love it when you're just honest also, because the reality is that none of us are great at everything.
Absolutely not.
Just in general, in life, none of us are great at everything. We have things that are very niche about us that we excel in. And you'll get so much further in sales, you'll get so much further in business, you'll get so much further in life by owning the things that you do great and getting better at those things and being honest about the things that are weaknesses. So I totally agree with you there. And I think at the end of the day, from a business and sales perspective, knowing what we're good at and what we're not good at has to start at the top. That's a corporate objective for the executive team, the founders, et cetera, to say, here's our swim lane. Here's what we do well. Here's what we don't do well. Anything in here is in our strike zone. Clean all queues and portfolios of anything outside of those things, because here's where we want to focus, man. And the businesses that I've been a part of that truly excelled and grew rapidly had incredible focus. The businesses that tend to take longer sometimes are just because people are distracted, doing too many of the wrong things and not staying focused and disciplined on the thing we do great.
Absolutely. I think that's there's a lot to chew on here.
There's so much.
I think that's a good place for us to put a pin in it. But before we wrap, give me your CRO, right? You're advising somebody. You've done it before. You've built segmentation. You've pivoted segmentation. You've come in and we were doing this. Now, 6 months later, we've built a plan to do something different. If I'm a new entrant, I'm a new VP of sales, I'm a new CRO, I'm a founder, give me 3 quick actionable things. If I'm trying to figure out segmentation, just real quick how to do it.
Apply a revenue bands across the existing footprint. Choose the north, the cap for SMB, choose the cap for middle market. Everything's enterprise above that. Take those segments, apply it to all the legacy customers today, and find out from a concentration perspective, where does everybody live in the pie chart? From there, the third thing is you got to find out from a performance perspective, where are we getting the most value? Where is the highest concentration of the right margin, the right production that we need? Is it an SMB, middle market, enterprise? Wherever it is, I want to focus 60+% of our lead generation activities into driving more behaviors in that segment. I want to find out the lowest performing segments, most performing meaning financial health, margin health, volume, all those things. And I want to move them down the priority list. And I need to make a decision on if I want to keep and retain those types of customers and the operations around it, or if I need to pivot and repurpose efforts to a different segment. But if you walk into the business today as a CRO or a new VP of sales, your very first thing you should be doing is trying to understand what performance looks like today identifying what we're really good at and what we're not, and ensuring that the existing team is focused on those activities. Everything else can come 90 days afterwards, 180 days afterwards, but that's your first 90-day plan, man. You got to figure out what's working well and what's not.
I love it, man. It's funny. We just executed that with a very sizable couple $100 million org that we're diving in with on the consulting side. We do a lot of recruiting work with them too, but those things work, man. They're very, very actionable comments on how to just take this and say, cool, let's get into little bite-sized chunks to go and make an impact on the org. So I love that, man. Thank you.
Absolutely. A bunch of small wins end up being really big wins over time.
Yeah, man. Well, look, I look forward to catch you on the next one, and we'll figure out which topic is most pressing at the time, man. But I really appreciate you.
All right, bro. Much love. See you guys.